right, so good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Brainy Boomer Lecture Series. We're so very happy you've all joined us today. In 2007, the McGill University Research Center for Studies in Aging, or the MCSA Education Committee, started the Brainy Boomer Lecture Series in order to suggest practical steps to both improve and maintain brain health, as well as to promote healthy lifestyle choices amongst the most populous generation in history. The MCSA's Education Committee, which was founded in 1996, has three main objectives: identifying education needs of healthcare providers, seniors, caregivers, and the public, and developing responses to meet some of those needs; enhancing the positive image of the aging process by addressing stereotypes and myths about aging; and finally, the dissemination of research on aging. Dr. Dolly DeStore is a geriatric clinical psychologist with over 40 years of experience in working with individuals suffering from Alzheimer's disease and their family. She specializes in the assessment of dementia and was the co-director of the program in dementia with psychiatric comorbidity at Douglas Mental Health University Institute. Before continuing, we'd like to remind you to please mute yourself on Zoom, and that if you have any questions, please wait until the end of the conference, or you can write them down in the chat box on Zoom. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Dolly DeStore to start her presentation, Aging Gracefully.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining this Zoom conference call today. This presentation on aging gracefully is what we all want to do. We're all aging. We all on the Zoom call are aging, and this happens from the day we are born. But we want to like to enjoy the last part of our years, and we want to appreciate what's going on. So aging gracefully is not about trying to look like a 20-year-old. It is about living our best life and having the physical and mental health to enjoy it. We can get better with age, with the right care, like an aged wine or cheese. So there is much more to aging than wrinkles and sagging skin, which we're all afraid of. So this is some pictures of people who have aged gracefully. You can recognize them and having a good time. And we wish we all would do that. You can see people still taking part in swimming competitions, a couple enjoying themselves, enjoying each other's company, painting, having social gatherings, which we all do. So John Kennedy in 1963 said that it is not enough for a great nation merely to add years to life, but our object also must be to add new life to those years, which is very true. And then Oscar Wilde in 1891, which is even further back, said that to get back to my youth, I would do anything in the world except take exercise, get up early, or be respectable, which is okay, but it's not very true because we need to do some exercise to get well. So I want to talk about, or we need to talk about today about the different attitudes for aging gracefully. And I've tried to bring up about 7 attitudes in which we will go through all of them, either in combination with each other or separately. So first is to accept the complexity that comes with longevity, and we shall see that. And to develop a positive attitude towards growing older, because we can't avoid that. Exercise your mind and your body. Lower your stress levels. Get enough sleep. Broaden your interests and stay active. And the last one is to recognize and express gratitude for your life. So the concept of gracefully aging can be traced back to 1950. It was more popularized in 1980s. And now we need to discuss 3 concepts of what is aging gracefully. The first concept is what is aging. The second concept is how do we age gracefully? And third concept is the strategies of how do we develop the strategies to age gracefully, because non-acceptance of aging is a great obstacle. In 2014, the American Association of Retired Persons did an aging survey to find out at what age a person is considered old. Now, we all have our own concepts of how old you are. My mother was much younger than what I am today when I got married, and I thought at that time that she was old. So the concepts of old changes as we ourselves grow older. So people in their 40s said that 63 is to be considered as old. People in their 50s said 68 years is considered old. And people in their 60s said 73. So you see, as we grow older, the age, concept of age increases. Now, the last one is a bit of a dilemma to me. In the 70s, people thought 65 years was old. So they're going backwards. But when a man was asked, what age do you consider to be old? The man said at 70, and the woman also said 70. So they were both equal. But when a woman was asked, what age do you consider old for a man? They said that men should be considered old at 68, but women considered themselves old at 75. So we like to remain much younger, but men like to remain older. Okay. So in Canada, the maximum lifespan of ours is increasing every century. In 1867, we were only 3.5 million people in total. And by 2012, we were 34.92 million, out of which 5.5 million were over the age of 65, which is about 14.4% of the total population of Canada. By 2036, which is not that far away, there'll be 10.4 million over 65 years of age, which will be about almost quarter of the population. And by 2051, 24.7 million people will be over 65 years old. And in Quebec, in 2011, we were 15.7 million percent over 65. And 2036, we are 25.1% over 65. And by 2025, which is just 5 years away, the population over 65 of both US and Canada combined will be 25%. That's a lot of people. And by 2050, there'll be more people over 65 than under 14. And that tells a lot about our social systems. Together with there being more people, the life expectancy in Canada is also growing. In 1920, we used to live approximately 59 years old. By 2010, this was jumped by 20 years, 59, 69, 79, yes, by 20 years to 79 years, of which women would live about 81.5 years and men a little less, by 75.9 years. So you see that we are living longer, we are more of us and we are living longer. And there are 3,130 Canadians over the age of 100 years living at present. Now, to put it slightly differently, if you can imagine that in 70 years, there are 611,000 hours which we lived. If we live till 100 years, there'll be 8,073,000 hours. So there is a 40% increase in our lifespan. We have so many more hours and days to live. And how do we plan our lives? How do we plan for our finances? How do we plan for our children? We need to reinvent ourselves because nobody can live or work till for 100 years. But if we retire for, say, at 70 years, and if you have to live for another 30 years, we have to do something. We have to find other types of work. We have to find other types of employment to be able to keep ourselves busy. Because if you are healthy, if you are well, what are we going to do? So that's a big challenge, and you should keep that challenge in your mind. So the challenge is, how do we help all the people who are living longer to age gracefully and to live their lives fully? The traditional idea was that we all had a three-stage life. We had our education, we had a career, we got married, and then we retired, and that's it. But this is being replaced by a multi-stage life. There's no longer a linear continuation of our life. It's multi-stage, because living longer brings more complexity in our relationships. There may be a divorce, there may be a remarriage, there may be more children, there may be stepchildren, there may be half children, there may be more in-laws, different types of, two different families. And there's a matrix of new relationships, and we have to navigate between all these relationships. And that is another challenge. So now we come to trying to understand what is aging itself. I mean, we're living and we grow old every day, but what is aging? How do we age? What is this? First is chronological age. That is the age based on the numbers of years we've lived. You are 80 years old, you're 50 years old, you're 60 years old. I am 80 years old. So the chronological age does not correlate with functional age. We all know people who are 60, but they behave like as if they are 90 years old. They say, oh, I can't do anything. I'm so old. I feel bad. I feel this. And there are still people in their 70s who behave as if they're 50 years old. They're fit and energetic and do everything. So we also divided the chronological aging part into a young old, which is between 65 and 74, a middle-aged old between 75 and 84, and the oldest old, 85 plus. In addition to chronological age, we have a biological age. That is our physical status that reduces the efficiency of our organs. I mean, are all the organs, our liver, our heart, our kidney, our bowels, are they all working efficiently as they should, or are they also aging? And that also happens. Sometimes we know that we go to a doctor's visit and they said, oh, your heart is as good as a young person's heart. And they boost our morale. So biological age is something different from chronological age. In addition to that, we age psychologically. That is our sensory. We need glasses, we need a hearing aid, our cognitive abilities are not so sharp, our adaptive capacities are there, our personalities are changing or not changing. So those are psychological changes which take place. So we have a chronological changes in years, we have a biological changes in our body systems, and then we have a psychological changes in our sensory systems. In addition to that, what we have also a social aging process where individuals changing roles and relationships with the family and friends and informal support also changes. And at the same time, it is also very important. It is important that we maintain the family and friends to keep up our functioning levels. Whereas the individual's roles in maybe say in different countries where the aged are very much revered, their role is quite different. They're respected, they're looked up to, their advice is taken. Whereas in some countries, the elder people are relegated to the background. They may be living by themselves, nobody really phones them, and they don't do anything. So these are different concepts of the social aspects of aging, which is a very important part of keeping ourselves healthy and well. And in addition to those four I mentioned, there are two additional essential components. One is adaptation, which means you may do everything, but there is still disability and still disease. You may have an accident, you may have a disability, you may break your bones, or you may break your hip, or you may not be able to walk, or you may have a paralysis or whatever. So you have to learn to adapt to that situation, which is beyond your control. In addition to adaptation and in conjunction with adaptation, there is acceptance. You have to accept the disability and disease as part of life. You may do everything right, but you can meet with an accident, you can meet with unforeseen circumstances, and you have to accept that. You can't just sit back and say, oh my God, why did this happen to me? Why me? Why me? And I had seen a very nice video, and I think many of you may have seen it also. There was this person with a lot of disabilities, and the video said, why not me? And that one said that, why should I not have this disability? I have to come over then and be an example. I was given this disability to show people that what can be done in spite of our disability. Okay. And also there is a discrepancy between our chronological age and our biological age. And I told you that. And the interaction is between the genetics, what we are born with. 30% of our aging process is due to genetics, but 70% is due to the environment of how we live, how we eat, how we exercise, what we do, all that environment, both internal environment and external environment, our surroundings, our environment, our townships, whatever, all those affect us. So there's an interaction between genetics and environment. And no effect of anti-aging medicines is going to bridge that gap. That gap is to be bridged by ourselves. I mean, you'd seen people, you've met your friends and your school friends, or you've gone to a school reunion and seen your classmates, and you say, oh my God, she looks so different. Is she the same person? And sometimes somebody looks exactly the same as they look, and you say, you haven't changed a bit. You look exactly the same. So there is this difference between how people look after themselves as well, in addition to their own genetics. So the models of aging there's a parameters for the strategy. We all want a low probability of disease or disability. We don't want a disease, but we try to keep that probability as low as possible. And at the same time, we want high cognitive and physical functioning. So low probability of disease and high cognitive and physical functioning. That's what we would like. And we also would like to have an active engagement with life. There are scales and surveys going on. People who rate themselves very satisfied on their marriage, with their children, with their friendship, with the community service, seem to be very actively engaged with life. And those are the people who are very successful and accept life and accept the aging process. So in spite of doing all this, you should let nature take its course. You can't just sit back and say, oh my God, I'm 21 years old, I'm 51 years old, I'm 71 years old. What's going to happen now? Let nature take its course, because while you delay the onset of aging, nature will keep on continuing, and you have to keep accepting that. So how do we preserve the health of our mind, of our brain, of our body for aging gracefully? One is lifestyle. We alluded a little bit, we'll talk more about it. The cognitive activities to keep our brain active, positive attitudes, and then to use efficient strategies for your memory, which memory is another process which everybody is very scared of, that as we age, maybe we are losing our memory. So how do we preserve our brain health and memory? First, very important is exercise. Exercise is like a molecular fertilizer for your brain. We have to do exercises for both mental and physical well-being. For the mental is the neurobiologics, and for physical is your aerobics. We all do a lot of aerobic exercises. We try to go into different gym classes. Now we have all the Zoom classes, and the mental exercises, we have to do them with crossword puzzles or reading books or whatever. We have to do it at least 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. That's the minimum we should do. If you do more, that's good. We also need to have a pro-memory diet. Our diet should be low in saturated fat, high in fruits and vegetables. We need to have vitamin B12, which is important for our bones and our nervous system. We need milk and cheese. We need folate, which is for iron. Folate is found in spinach, in citrus foods, in asparagus, in beans, and folic acid and vitamin E. And you find that in nuts and oils, and that protects your brain. The other important factor for preserving brain health is sleep. You always think that sleep, why sleep? Sleep is so unnecessarily, it wastes your time. But sleep is very necessary for our memory functioning because it reduces your stress. And it is said that our generation is the most sleep-deprived generation. Now we have electricity, we have Netflix, and we have television going all the time. We don't tend to sleep early, and we tend to wake up late. So we need at least 6 to 7 or 8 hours of sleep regularly. Maybe as we grow older, we may need a little bit of sleep, but we do need at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And it is said that you can go without food for, say, 2 days or 3 days as fasting with a minimum of food, but we cannot go without sleep. And that is why after, say, about 12 to 16 hours of not sleeping, your mind doesn't seem to function very well. You feel a little bit of confused. You don't feel well. And that is why for torture chambers, people are made to go without sleep. They go to a sleep deprivation. They torture them and keep asking them questions and not let them go to sleep, have a light falling on their eyes so that they get all confused without sleep. One second. The other important thing is for stress. We have a hormone in our body called cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and it is very near one function in our organ in our brain, which is called the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is the one which regulates, which processes our memory. But this cortisol, when we are very stressed out, this cortisol alters the brain functions because it hinders the functioning of the hippocampus, and it shrinks the hippocampus. If the hippocampus, the volume of the hippocampus shrinks, there's not enough space to process the memories. There's not enough place in the hippocampus to do things with the memory. And so with stress, you don't function very well. And when that stress is reduced and when you feel that you are less stressed, you begin to function normally again. You know that when you were younger, when we went for examinations or you went for your job interviews, and you would say when you were asked questions or you had questions in your examination, you couldn't answer it, and you came out and then somebody said, oh, but that was so simple. That was it. And you said, oh my God, that was it. I just could not answer. I just blanked out. That's because you were so stressed out that you could not remember or could not think. So you must remember that you have to try to control your stress as much as possible. Nobody lives without stress. We all have stress, but we need to control it and manage stress. The last item also, not one of the last items, is also social and leisure activities. We have to build meaningful relationships and social networks as we age, because as I said, we have so many more hours now, and we are not working, so we have to do something with our time. So we have to build relationships with people, establish our family or social networks, or the best thing is to volunteer yourself. Maybe in this pandemic times, we cannot do all that, but hopefully things will change and we'll be able to volunteer ourselves again, because by volunteering and giving yourself to others, you get back in return. You get back the satisfaction that you've done something, and that boosts your morale and it boosts your oxytocin in your body, and you feel good about yourself. The most important thing in aging and aging gracefully is feeling good in yourself that what you're doing is worthwhile. Now, to go back a little bit on exercise, there are many types of exercises you can do, but walking is the best aerobic activity. 45 minutes a day, 5 times a week. It doesn't cost you anything. You just have to go out to walk. It improves the neural circuit that controls the memory, controls your reasoning and attention. It lowers stress and improves sleep. So walking, together with walking, you can have swimming or dancing or bicycling, all those things which make you physically active. In addition to that, you also need to have strength to build and maintain your bone and muscles. As we grow older, bone and muscle strength diminishes. And we need to build that up at least 2 or 3 times a week by 30 minutes of exercises, by weights or by just strength training. Because when you have strength in your muscles and strength in your body, if you have a fall, if you break your hip, you will recover much faster, because breaking all those things diminishes the quality of your life. And that is not good for aging well. You also need to have flexibility and balance training, because this would prevent aches and pains and stiffness in joints. We all have that, especially in the morning when you get up. And you may have beginning of arthritis, osteoporosis, all these things happen. I mean, that is natural, but we can prevent it or minimize the effect of it by flexibility and balance training. Also, we can do yoga. These gentle forms of hatha yoga is good because it exercises and stretches every muscle of your body and makes you more flexible. In addition to that, meditation for building a bigger brain, because we do push-ups and crunches and we go to the gym. People have many strategies for building bigger muscles and stronger bones, but what can you do to build a bigger brain? That's important. As we grow older, and the right orbital frontal cortex is one of the areas of the brain that appears to be enlarged due to meditation. We always thought that meditation was just an exercise. This is yogic exercise. But by now, by science and by MRIs and scans, have proved that it actually affects the structure of the brain. And so it is important to do some sort of meditation, some sort of a yoga exercises. Rest and sleep. As I said, rest is important. Making time during the day when you're without stimulation, doing nothing, keeping your mind blank. And because rest not only rejuvenates your body, but it also rejuvenates your brain, because the brain also needs to be rested. It's an organ like any other organ. So we need to make it rest. An afternoon nap in the afternoon, afternoon nap is in the afternoon, is to rejuvenate your brain. And just lie down, think of nothing. You may not go to sleep, but just relax and doing nothing, keeping your brain inactive is good. Because sleep rejuvenates your brain, as I said, and we are a sleep-deprived generation. I've said that before. And minimize your early awakening. You can't just say, that, oh, I'm going to sleep late throughout the week, and I'll get up very late on a Saturday and Sunday and make up for all the lost sleep. That doesn't work. You can't store sleep in your brain. You have to have sleep regularly. And you have to wake up, try and have a pattern of sleep and wake ups and sleep cycle regularly so that it forms into a habit. The other thing is also touch and sex. In our generation now, it's considered a taboo to touch people without any reason. But touch is important requirement for optimum health. We need to have a human contact. People who have no human contacts feel very lost. They feel very lonely. So sometimes if single people who can afford it can go for a regular massage, which keeps their body in shape, and it gives you a human touch. So touch and sex, but sex does not necessarily mean sex in the copulating sense of the term, but sex means relationships with another human being, another maybe of the opposite sex, to have contact. So there has to be a balance between exercise and diet for us to be able to live gracefully and to have good metabolism in our body and good neurocognitive health. There has to be a balance of everything to be able to do good. So in addition to that, we've always believed we have to do some learning. I said that we have this 30 or more years to live and to spend our time in, and what are we going to do with that? We always felt that the brain did not develop much after childhood and that we started to deteriorate after age 30, which is no longer true. It may have been true, people may have thought that before, but the brain, we know through research that brain can form new connections and create new cells. And that is the science of neurogenesis. It grows, the brain can grow. And exercises, both mental and physical, both of them, can keep the brain healthy and growing. Brain can change, it can reorganize its structure, forming new connections, which not even but throughout our lives. And that is called neuroplasticity. So those are two new concepts which have come up: neurogenesis, the brain forms new connections, and neuroplasticity, that means that new connections and new pathways are being formed in the brain throughout our lives. Cerebral growth happens when we challenge our learning and stretch our thinking. If we keep doing the same thing day in and day out without any change, the brain is not being stimulated and it falls into a rut. So we need our brains to love stimulation. And by stimulating our brain, it results in a healthier, sharper mind. When we stop learning and we begin to live on autopilot, and we follow the same routine, we become limited as we age. The examples they give is that if supposing a physician, a radiologist, keeps looking at the same types of slides of the body as a radiologist, day in and day out, I don't know, thousands of slides in his career time, everything looks the same. You have to learn to stimulate your mind, learn new things, go for refresher courses to be able to be more active in your activities which you are doing. That is important to be healthy, young, and age gracefully. So there's some cognitive activities which we can also do. There's some brain teasers. We need to learn at least one activity a year. Active activity, not passive activity. We need to not just sit in front of television and watch it and see that, oh yes, and this is an activity. Watch that. But if you can do that together with somebody, that is more beneficial, because then you can talk and chat and discuss what is going on. So your brain is not only taking in the information, but you're also giving out the information. Because as I said before, and I'm repeating again, aging is inevitable. But memory loss, which we are all very worried that if we grow older, we may all lose our memory, is not. Memory loss is not optional. It just happens sometimes. And there are only some areas in the brain. There's some areas in the brain which are vital to memory, which we need to keep those active. One is, I told you, hippocampus, which is essential for our working memory. This is a short-term memory for things which we do and remember for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We need a telephone number, we remember the number, and then we forget it. We don't have to keep it in our mind forever. Then the frontal lobes, which are the lobes in the front, are also important because the information comes there and it's just processed. And it's important to keep those brain functioning. The amygdala is another organ which is associated with memory, and all our emotions, the emotions connected with our memories, are housed in the amygdala. And then you have the thalamus, which also is another small organ which controls your attention. And when we were younger, when we had children, and had grandchildren, and they were crying, we would jump up and go to see what's wrong. But now you have even a grandchild in your house and your parent is there, you will not jump up and go. It doesn't even bother you if the child is crying, because unless people cry for a long time, but for a short time, the parent is going to look after it, so it doesn't bother us. So the activity in the hippocampus and the frontal lobe slows down with age. It's true, due to the loss of connections between the nerve cells. But our job of all of us is to keep that synapses going, the nerve cells working, functioning, by stimulating the brain, by eating good food, by doing exercise. So all those things help in keeping your brain active and keeping the hippocampus and the frontal lobes active, in spite of the loss of the connections. So we said the memory. What is memory? It's a dance of chemicals and electrical activity in the brain. You can't see memory. Memory is not tangible. Even if you do a surgery and open up your brain, you can't see the memory. But if you can touch, if the surgeon can touch a particular point in the brain, the chemical and electrical activity will show up on the MRI. So there are different types of memory systems. You don't have to know that, but just to let you know, there are some types of memories which decline with age and some do not. For example, explicit memory is consciously, when you consciously have to remember an action. Now that action can be an episode, which will decline with age, or that action could be semantic. That could be for words, for facts, for images, for overlearned materials. That does not decline with age. As you grow older, your vocabulary is not going to fade away. And that is not dependent on cues for retrieval. Sometimes it may become temporarily inaccessible. You see somebody on the road and the name doesn't come out, but the person goes away and says, oh, that was her name. So you remember it after a while. That happens. That's normal. And the other part of the memory system is an implicit memory, which is non-declarative, where you do not have to make a conscious effort to remember an action. For example, motor skills for learning, driving, those are all automatic actions. You're brushing your teeth, you're making your coffee. These are things which you do automatically, and you will keep on doing them as long as you live. You don't forget those things. The brain is hardwired for storing visual information better than auditory information. So see, maybe 50 years ago, when there was no PowerPoint and there was nothing up on the screen, and I was just keep talking, you would not remember half the things as when you can see it in front of you. So what you see visually, you remember much better than what you can only hear. That's important, so remember that. And then we can also use efficient strategies to remember things. We can have an internal memory aids. We can organize our systems verbally and visually. We can add something to the information that's coming in to make it more meaningful. We try to organize to remember a name together with a color or with an object, and break the information in more meaningful parts. We have external memory aids. We can have your agendas. You can have your cues. You can have your post-its. You can have your filing system. You make lists for your groceries, or you make lists for what are the things you have to do. So those are external memory aids, and you have your internal memory aids. So those are efficient strategies to help you to remember things. In addition to that, we have to have a lifestyle. We have to have a proper lifestyle, because thoughts and emotions and attitudes are key determinants of how you age and their effects on our health. In addition, as I mentioned before, stress and distress invoke the relaxation response. Breathing, practicing yoga, and stroking a pet, those are all stress relieving efforts which we can bring into our lifestyle. So in addition to that, we have to think of whether we are resilient in looking after ourselves, whether our lifestyle allows us to overcome the things which are bothering us. There is the advanced part of our brain, which is in the front of our brain, which exercises control over our other parts of the brain. And as our brains developed, and as the human beings developed, our brains have also developed. And we learn to have control. We learn to not to get up and do things. I mean, you may be wanting to get up and go away just now. You don't do that because you think that it's not good to do that. It's not good manners. So you sit because there's a control. Some part of your brain is controlling you. And that results in resistance to stress, which is called resilience. If not, then stress is the outcome. And stress, when you have chronic stress, it accelerates brain aging. So you have to appropriate values and attitudes to life together with the effort to put in practice to create resilience. We have to learn. Resilience doesn't come naturally. It's a learned effort. You have to make an effort to learn resilience in your life. So very quickly again, what is stress? Stress is a biological reaction to physical and environmental danger. When you see some danger, when you see something physically, environmentally, you get stressed up. Now, stress has a long history. When maybe we were thousands of years ago, millenniums of years ago, when we were in the desert or in the bush or in the grasslands, when we saw an animal or we saw things, we were acutely stressed. We became stressed. The person either had to run or was eaten up by the animal. So there was a physical the reaction, and for that reaction, the heart beats faster, the blood is pumped faster, you get more energy to run. So everything in your body accelerates to make you prepared to run or to react to that danger. So there is acute stress, which is good and sometimes necessary. You need to have some stress. You can't be just flat. If there was no stress, you would be a flat person. But chronic stress is not good, because when that stress level does not diminish at all, if you have a stress and it comes down, that's fine. But if you have a chronic stress and it stays on, for example, you're looking after somebody with chronic illness, or you're having somebody with dementia in your family, and there's no respite from that situation, then that is chronic stress. And that ages you much faster than normal aging. So stress can be expressed as physical, when you can have a headache, you get fatigued, you have a loss of appetite, you have sleep disturbances, you can't sleep very well. Then you have the stress can be expressed in mental, because as I said, there's impaired memory, there's a lack of concentration, you can't concentrate, you can't make good decisions, your decisions are not well formed. So those are mental stresses. You have a physical stress, you have a mental stress, and you have emotional stress, where you become tense, you become nervous, you get frustrated, you get depressed, and you get anxious. And that all that relates into your behavior. You start smoking, perhaps. If you were smoking 1 or 2 cigarettes, you smoke much more. People start drinking, people start overeating, then there's nail biting, then there's swearing, and words which you never used before. So all this is as an expression of stress. Physical stress, mental, emotional, and behavior. So how are we going to control that? How do we manage the stress? So as I said before, we have to develop resilience. You have to learn to cope with it. If you learn to cope with different situations when you're younger, and you become more self-aware and you know your strength. Or are we brittle? Do we just break down in certain situations? You know people, when they have a situation and they cannot manage it, they collapse. They get depressed, or their blood pressure rises, or their vision deteriorates, and the whole thing is they're a mess. So stress impacts our performance and ability to be satisfied with life. We're all the time stressed out, and we all the time complain that why am I feeling this? Why am I getting all this? Then you are not satisfied with your life. And what are the common causes of stress? There was a work, job, finances. People worry about that, worry about the RRSP, worry about the health. Now that we worry about the pandemic. So 1990 was the watershed year at that time for increasing the levels of stress. Now, 2020 will be another year for increasing the levels of stress. Everybody is stressed out. Related disorders doubled at that time from 1990 to 1999, depression and suicide. And now, because of the pandemic, we have more depression, domestic abuse are also on the increase. And prescriptions for anti-anxiety sedatives have rivaled the cardiovascular drugs immensely. So how do we manage stress? They can be pharmacological. You can go to your doctor and ask him to give you a relaxant, ask to give you an antidepressant, but that's not going to cure your basic cause for your stress. So you have to go also for non-pharmacological interventions, which is meditation, as I said before, which helps you relax, improving your social support, talk about your stress problems to your friends, to your family. Regular, moderate physical activity also helps, and improving the quality of your sleep. Try to get as much sleep as possible. And coping stress strategies for stress is change the way you look at things. Don't take everything personally and take everything on your shoulder. Take nutritional health seriously. Eat well. Don't keep eating junk food all the time. Exercise is one of the best and most efficient ways to reduce stress. Practice relaxation and meditation. Get more sleep. I'm repeating myself, but it is important for you to absorb this. Buy yourself some relief. That's important too. If you can afford it, hire help to do some housework for you, to do your gardening for you, to do your lawn mowing for you, to do your snow clearance for you, so that you don't have to do everything yourself and feel more stressed. You can book a massage for yourself to be able to relax. Pace yourself. Don't overextend. Don't say yes to everything. Sometimes we women have a tendency to say yes to everything. We have to learn to say no. And we also have to build a support system so that when you feel too stressed, you know that there's somebody you would like to talk to, somebody who would can give you a ear to listen to. Maybe they may not give you any advice. Maybe they just listen. And every time you talk and to somebody, that you lower your stress level. And the first step in reducing stress is take back control of your life. That's very important, because when you feel that you're losing control, that everybody's making decisions for you, you can't do anything for yourself, that is the time when you cannot age gracefully. That is the time when you panic and you just age haphazardly. So I'm going to recap now, delaying the effects of aging. How could you do that and to age gracefully? The process of aging is inevitable, but one can potentially delay the effects and severity of this process. By what? Physical exercises, by diet, by taking more omega-3 fatty acids with more fish, protective antioxidants, staying intellectually engaged, by reading, by webinars like this, or taking part in different discussions, maintaining social and friendship networks, developing cognitive reserve, being able to deal this cognitive reserve and staying intellectual engagement are quite closely related to each other. So that we have to keep our brains active and moving all the time. You can't just sit back and say that, oh, I wish I was 20 years younger, I would be doing this. No, you're not 20 years younger. You're not going to get 20 years younger. You're 70 years old, and this is what you're supposed to do. And managing stress. You cannot eliminate stress because stress accelerates brain aging, but manage stress. Learn how to manage your stress. So the strategies for graceful aging is, again, aging is a continuous and necessary process. Accept and understand the process of aging, both physical and mental. Accept the inevitability of aging and adapt to that. Learn and practice what you have to do to keep your mind and body in good working condition through all phases of life. Learn to live in appropriate ways to maximize health and happiness. Doing what you love can add to your years. And keep your brain in top shape. Now, let's see. So the last thing I would like to really focus on is to recognize and express gratitude for your life. Our focus in this presentation is not on anti-aging. I'm not going to ask you how to stop aging. Our focus is on aging wisely, intelligently, and gracefully. Because aging is a continuation of life. Embracing aging with gratitude for all the joys of life increases your longevity. A Harvard study was done on gratitude showed that those who age successfully worry less about cholesterol and more about gratitude and forgiveness. They have a clear sense of gratitude for the joys of life. In another study, which was continued over 22 years, it's a long period, on two groups of people, those with a positive attitude to aging and those with negative attitude of aging. And it showed that the positive group outlived the negative group by 7.5 years. So if you want to live longer, you have to have a positive attitude to aging. When you get up in the morning, Think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to love, and to enjoy the day. Embrace your age. Enjoy getting older. Because getting old is natural. Feeling old is optional. Aging gracefully is a matter of choice, and that choice is yours. Thank you. And I am open to questions now, if you have anything to ask.
Thank you so much, Dr. Destor, for that fantastic presentation. As Dr. Destor just said, she's open for any questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or you could write them down in the chat box. One question I got pretty early on is if you would be willing to share a copy of your PowerPoint with everyone.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
No
You
problem.
can send it to me and I can share it with everyone who attended today.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
So, yes, hi, this is Gloria.
Hi.
You want to see me?
It's up to you.
So I wanted to ask Dr. Dastor a bit more about the meditation, how meditation can improve brain function. What is it about the meditation that has an effect on the brain?
I think that question will, I'll try and answer it, but the question can be best answered by people who really are into yoga and or teach yoga. Because it seems that when we do meditation, when you breathe in deeply, when you expand the ventricles in your brain, all that happens, which is a positive effect on meditation. They did some studies with the monks in Tibet who meditate very deeply, as you know, and they were doing some MRI scans on them, and they found that after periodic meditations, their brain structure of the brain changed. Now, I cannot explain to you what exactly changed, how and why it changed, but it did change. So there is a positive effect of meditation.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And maybe just to go off of that last question, we have another one here. It says, do you have any ideas for managing stress during COVID-19?
Oh my God, that is such a good question and a difficult question. I think the thing is, I saw a very nice little YouTube presentation which says, if you were born in 1900s, and then it went through from 1900 to 2000 as to what all the different calamities which took place with people and what everybody had to go through. And they were very similar or even more difficult than what we are going through now. I mean, it is difficult, but the things which we are asked to do, as to wear a mask, to keep social distance, and people are revolting against it. People are rebelling against it, because those are the simple things which keeps things in bay. If we had followed that, we wouldn't have had the second phase which we are having. So I think the first thing is we can't fight it, so we have to go along with it and do what we can to accept it and keep calm and do as much as we can, as well as we can. I think that's the best thing which we can do. I mean, we can go out for walks. We can do things which we normally do in the house. I mean, it is very difficult when you are in a small apartment and you got and this is much more difficult on women. I think women who are working, women who have little children in the house, they have to look after them and to do their job if they're working from home. I get it. I get it that it's very difficult and it's very hard, but we have to try and develop our resilience, and our behavior is how we can manage it. Managing it is most important.
Perfect.
I don't think I've answered your question very well, but I don't have any more answer to that, but to be relaxing and keeping, as I said, relaxing as much as we can, sleeping, try and get as much sleep as we can. That's important.
Perfect. We have another one here. So it says, of all the strategies, are there one or two that have been found to be particularly effective during a pandemic?
No, I think I'll repeat the same thing. I think is to try and keep calm, try to not to react too much to the situation and accept it. I think in any situation which is out of your control and there's nothing you can do about it, you have to accept the situation.
So we have another one here. They would like to know, what are some tips for loneliness and aging?
Yeah, I think the British government under Theresa May had even set up a ministry for loneliness and how to combat loneliness in the aged. I think it behoves all of us in society, those who are doing community work, to be able to develop programs for people who are alone, who are lonely, by but if we are providing programs, but to make sure that these people are able to come to those programs by providing transportation, because they may not have any transportation. They may be living in this area where there is nothing. They may have to wait to the bus for a long time, and buses come, say, once an hour or once in half an hour, and that's not good enough. So we need to provide transportation, we need to provide attractive programs, and I think that many municipalities have that. And we have to make it known to the people who are alone in the house. I can also suggest that people who are also listening to the program, who are not listening to the program, who have elderly people, elderly relatives, grandparents, in-laws, who are alone and sitting, make an effort to keep in contact with them, at least by phone, if by nothing else. Just a human voice makes a big difference for hearing them. Maybe not every day, maybe every once a week, maybe twice a week. That makes you feel that there's somebody there to care for you. You are not all alone in the world. That is important. You don't want to feel alone. You want to feel cared for. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, and I have another one here. I would like to know about the most recent views on the benefits of fish oil.
Well, I don't know about fish oil, but I think it's good to eat fish, which is oily fish, like, for example, salmons or mackerel. Those are good because that generates, that those have antioxidants, and antioxidants are good for our brain, or all our brain cells, for our skin, for our whatever. So antioxidants is good to keep us healthy and looking youthful. I mean, youthful is not a good word. You don't want to look youthful, you want to look our age, but fish oil is good for that. Eating fish, I don't mean to say drink fish oil, but to eating fish at least twice a week, which are rich in oil. That's good.
Perfect. So we have another one here. It says, is there any proof that cosmetic surgeries that make seniors look younger has a positive effect on aging, including living longer?
It has a big effect on your pocket. You'll have to spend a lot of money to get those surgeries. No, it has no effect. I mean, I've been saying it again and again, and maybe I didn't say it here enough, that no amount of cosmetics or creams or this or that is going to make any major effect on you. And they may tell you that you buy this and within the next 20 minutes or next 30 minutes, and you'll look so much younger. That's all rubbish. This doesn't happen. In fact, internally and externally, if you live and behave as you should, act your age. I mean, don't try to act as if you're 20 years old or dress as if you're 30 years old, but act your age. That is what will keep you healthy and looking beautiful. You have to look beautiful not only inside, but you have to look beautiful outside, and the inside will reflect on your outside.
Perfect. Are there any more questions for Dr. Dastor? We'll just wait a minute. Any other questions for Dr. Dastor? Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Dastor, for this fantastic presentation. The members of the MCSA Education Committee would like to thank you and everybody who signed in today for this event. I have put down in the chat box, it's a PDF document. It's a virtual memorial for caregivers and seniors who were affected by COVID-19. All the information is going to be in that PDF if you would like to attend. I'll also put in the chat box, just one moment, it's just at the beginning, the link for our Eventbrite page if you would like to attend any other MCSA event. We've also put down the link for a brief survey because we would love to hear any feedback you have on today's event or any other Brainy Boomer or Health Month event that you've attended. So just once again, thank you so much for attending today, and I hope everyone has a great day.